Mr. Jeff Baird. Any of you guys that want to be great salesmen, want to be great leaders, want to be great husbands, fathers, everything. I think that learning the art of reading people and using body language to your advantage is a huge, will be a huge advantage in your lives. And so Jeff has done a bunch of research on the benefits of the body language that you use, as well as the techniques to learn the body language that people use to use that to your advantage in the right way, right? More sales, more recruits, taking care of your employees better. So I'm super excited. He comes with a lot of statistics and a lot of ways to help you improve your body language and learning the values of reading other people's body language. So Jeff Baird, let's give him a huge round of applause.
Thank you. So are we shooting for 5 o'clock still? Just so I'm... Okay. Excellent. So, body language guy. Who's feeling self-conscious? I'm not reading your mind right now, just so we're clear. Thank you for the opportunity to come here. We're wrapping up the second day of D2DCon, and I appreciate that you're here to come share some time with me. And I'm thankful for everybody that's put all this work into making this convention great. Everybody I've met has been inspiring. I don't know if it's been the same for you, but I've met all sorts of amazing people and have left wanting to be better myself and to be inspired. So thank you for coming, and thank you for everybody that's helped put this on. As he said, my name is Jeff Baird, and I do business intelligence, so data analytics. And I'm a corporate trainer on hard skills and soft skills. And I'm a certified body language trainer. Whew, who even knew that was a thing? Did you know it was a thing? All right, well, excellent. It's not that rare then. So what the heck does a body language trainer do? Well, I go to companies. I'm going to come back to that one. Gives you a little backstory. I go to companies and help their teams to learn what their body language is saying. I help them take control of their nonverbal communication so they can convey trust and build rapport and connections with people. And then I help them to recognize emotional cues in other people so they can better understand what they're feeling and what they're trying to communicate. I got into this originally for a couple different reasons, but one of them was because of Disney's Inside Out. Have you guys seen this? Okay, who can give me a quick summary of what this movie's about? Right, and we all got these little characters in our heads for the basic emotions. They consulted a body language expert for this movie because emotions and body language are so closely tied. So all these basic emotion characters in your head, they've got one for joy, they've got one for sadness, they've got one for disgust and fear and anger. Yeah, 520, perfect. And whatever feeling you're feeling at the moment, that's what character's in charge of your head. And there was one scene in the movie where they're having dinner. As he said, they had to move from their home to San Francisco. And the little girl, Riley, was having a difficult time adjusting. And the family's sitting there at the dinner table. And Riley's having a hard day. And the mom is picking up on all the nonverbal cues that something's bothering her daughter. Moms are pretty good at that. Anyone remember what the dad was doing? Yeah, he's just eating his food and thinking about hockey. He was completely oblivious that there was something going on with his daughter. I didn't want that to be me. I didn't want to miss out on those important cues that there was something off. I guess that's why. How did he put it in the last speech? The holy why, holy cause? Holy cause. That's my holy cause. I didn't want that to be me with my boys. I got 3 little boys. I got an 11-year-old, got an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. If they're having a difficult time, I didn't want that to go fly past me. I don't have any hair to catch things going over my head anymore, so I have to pay attention. And outside of home, if I'm meeting with a client, or if I'm in a meeting or a job interview or any important social interaction, same thing. I didn't want to miss those cues. The other reason I started studying this is because of presentations like this. I found myself doing more presentation conferences and speeches. I didn't want to suck at it. So I started studying this as well to try to improve. I'm still a work in progress, but hopefully I'm getting better at it. So before we get too far down the path, though, I want to do an experiment. Don't worry about the poll. I think we're a small enough group we won't need it. What I want to do is show you a picture of an individual, and without thinking about it too much, I want you to just yell out what words pop into your mind when you see them. Okay? Scared, concerned. Serial killer. Focus, okay. Apprehensive. Maybe he tried some blitz, I don't know. Surprised, guarded, or defensive. So I've shown this picture to probably hundreds of groups and done this experiment. Here is one word cloud based off the audience's responses. Jack Bowers wants to kill me. So this guy, some more background on him. He is a CEO of a job recruiting company. So if you went to his website and went to the About Me page, this is the picture you see. And that's what you'll be feeling. He's since changed the picture. There's some interesting things I've seen when we do this experiment, though. One is how consistent the sentiment tends to be across all different kinds of groups. This week I spoke to some people in Australia. In December I did a series of webinars to Africa, Europe, South America, the Pacific, and the sentiment tended to be the same regardless of the group, regardless of the age. They all felt the same kinds of things when they first saw this guy. It's also interesting to see how quickly our brains are making decisions about this poor gentleman. Our brains are trying to decide, do we trust him? It's trying to decide how competent he is. All this stuff in the first few moments that we start seeing him. It's also interesting that the scientific research that's out there about body language and what nonverbal cues should communicate different things to us matches what we're seeing here. So for example, he's got his eyes really big. He's showing lots of whites around his eyes. Oftentimes if we're in fight or flight, or if we're scared, or if we're ready to fight somebody, our eyes will get big so we can take in more peripheral vision. That, along with a whole bunch of other cues, gets us words like scared or scary. So it's interesting how quick our brains make the decision, how consistent it is across all different groups, and that the studies that we're doing around it is consistent with what we're seeing in the sentiment analysis. All right, am I the only geek that watches Brain Games on National Geographic? Have you guys seen that? Okay, I'm not the only one. We're going to play a brain game. He's going to show you pictures of political candidates running for office. And using just the picture, no other information, you have to try to guess who won the election. Okay? And I'm told if I just cycle through, it should play. Oh, nope. Middle button. Ooh, laser pointer. Let's try this one. No, that's not the right button. Just hit play on it for me if you would.
There's even such a thing as a persuasive face. Want to see what we mean? In this next experiment, we're going to show you the faces of different...
And if we need, I can just tell the experiment too if it's going to be. Anyone got a joke?
It starts with P, and E has a bajillion letters.
What?
Post office.
Post office. Nice, very nice, very nice.
There's even such a thing as a persuasive face. Want to see what we mean?
In this next experiment, we're going to show you the faces of
Different candidates from various local elections. We've paired up some of the winners with some of the losers.
We're just going to go ahead and
Something
play
tells
while
me
he's working on
somehow
this.
you're going to be able to pick the winner just by looking at them.
Ready? Go. So, which candidate do you think
Can you guys
won?
see that? Who do you think won the election? Left or right?
Got it? Now here's the real result.
Boom.
Now how
Okay,
about,
how about these two?
Here's the winner.
Man, you guys are
What
good.
about these two? And the winner is... So
So how did you do?
3 for 3.
Did you
Who got
pick
3
most
for
of the
3?
winners?
Yeah.
Majority of the people we surveyed did.
So how did you pick those winners? How could you know, based on nothing more than seeing their faces for just a few seconds?
Bulgarian perception specialist Alex Todorov of Princeton University found the answer in a groundbreaking 2007 experiment.
A very rapid glance is sufficient to predict about 70% of the election outcomes.
70% of the time, we can predict the winners of elections based on their faces alone.
Does that surprise anybody?
Pretty incredible.
70% of the time?
What is it about these winners that persuaded your brain to vote for them? It's not just the clothes, the background, or even the smile. The answer has to do with two specific qualities you saw in their facial structure.
In our studies, we found that candidates who look more competent and more trustworthy were more likely to be elected in office.
Competence and trustworthiness. You may find it hard to believe your brain can make such complex social assessments based on a face alone, but it can.
70% of the time. Does that bug anybody? I've got a lot of background in data, and I would like to think we're voting for our elected officials off their principles, their background, their policies, not on their selfie. Okay. But it was a powerful influencer on whether or not we want to vote for the person. And there's 2 traits in particular that he pointed out that we need to see in their facial structure for us to feel comfortable voting for them. Did you catch what the 2 were? There was actually attributes rather than physical attributes. So trust and competence. If they look trustworthy and competent, then they're more likely to get elected. And is it any different when we're trying to make a sale or any of our important social interactions? If they see us as trustworthy and competent, then we're going to have more influence. Now, there's good news and bad news with this. There's some static nonverbal cues that we can't control. How wide your face is can affect how competent you appear to people. I can't do a whole lot about what's going on up here with my hair other than just embrace it. Okay? But there are some dynamic things that we have control over that can affect people's perceptions of us. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I'm going to give you 3 tips that you can try as soon as you leave this room that should help improve your influence and help you to connect with other people. So this is an interesting experiment when all the information you have to go off of is a picture. But do you think it would still work on some other election that maybe has a lot more information, maybe a presidential election? Do you think it would still be a factor? I mean, because there you don't have just the picture. You've got all sorts of information. There's news articles, and sometimes there's voting records, all these kinds of things. Well, this professor came up with an algorithm that he could put candidates through to see how electable they were. He looked at the different nonverbal cues and facial structure things and came up with an algorithm of electability. And he took all the major presidential candidates from the last presidential election to see who would be most electable. Any guesses which 2 rose to the top? Just the ones that were officially running, but one of them was a celebrity. That's kind of small, but Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were ranked the top according to his algorithm. That surprised me because I thought there would be a lot of this other information that might offset the power of what people were seeing. But it's still a highly correlated factor in whether or not they got elected. Trump actually edged out Hillary a little bit on the composite score. So why is this so powerful? How much of our communication do you think is nonverbal? What percent? 70%. Okay, 70%. It's got to be bigger. I wouldn't be here, right? I'd be talking about verbal. Depending on the study, it's anywhere from 60 to 93%. So that's the bulk of all the communication we're doing. Where do we tend to spend most of our time when we're preparing for a speech or when we're preparing for a sales pitch? On the verbal or the nonverbal? I tend to, at least in the past, I've tended to spend way too much time on the verbal. What am I going to say? Rather than how I'm going to say it, when this is the bulk of the communication that's going on. In a 30-minute conversation, that green's not showing up good, but 2 people can send over 800 signals, nonverbal signals back and forth between each other. So in 30 minutes, you're sending 400 signals to them. Are you sending messages that are building trust and conveying confidence? And they're sending 400 signals back to you as clues as to what's going on inside their head, clues as to what they're feeling. If you're doing a sales pitch, they're giving clues as to if they're buying into it or if they don't like it. Tons of information. There's even one research study that shows that the nonverbal portion is the more powerful portion, up to 12 times as powerful. And you can see that. Who's married? Okay, has your spouse ever said everything was fine when clearly it wasn't? Okay. Or is that just me? If the verbal says one thing and the nonverbal says something different, we tend to believe the nonverbal. Nonverbal speak louder than the actual words that we're saying. So what I want you to start thinking about is what kind of messages am I sending? And if you leave here being self-conscious around me, then I guess my mission's accomplished. Just kidding, don't. But just start being aware. What kind of messages am I sending, and is it the kinds of messages I want to? Is it congruent with what my intentions are? And the goal, what we'd like to accomplish, is to find this sweet spot, this balance between warmth, openness, and trust, while still conveying confidence, competence, and power. That's where it puts you in a position where you have charisma and influence and persuasion. If you're down in this quadrant here, where you're very powerful and confident, but you're cold or aloof or you're kind of a jerk, then you may get your way just through the force of your power and your position, but in my opinion, you don't really have true influence. If you're on the opposite end, the upper left-hand quadrant, you're very warm and open, but nobody sees you as competent. These are the bless their hearts. Okay? You'll go have a beer with them, you'll have fun with them, but you don't trust them with anything important because you don't see them as competent. Lower left, nobody likes you there. Okay? You're cold, you're a jerk, don't fall into that quadrant. The good news is, though, is that we can take control of our body language to shift people's perceptions of our warmth, openness, and confidence and competence. And to understand why this works, I want to delve just briefly into how our brain is organized. We have 3 different parts of our brain that roughly go up the evolutionary ladder. We have a reptilian brain or reptilian complex. Any guesses why they call it that? Survival. And because reptiles have them, those clever scientists with their clever names. So if you think about a lizard, what can lizards do? They have fight or flight, like you mentioned. They run around trying to eat, trying to find a mate. There's not much more to it than that. That fight or flight part, we have that same part of our brain. We have a reptilian complex whose job it is to keep us safe. So if I were to step out here on State Street and a bus is about to hit me, my fight or flight part of my brain, my reptile brain, will kick in to make sure I'm safe. Go up the evolutionary ladder a little bit to the limbic system, or sometimes this is called the mammalian brain, and now you can start to bond with other mammals and you can start to have some higher levels of emotions. And this is what cats and dogs have. Who has a cat or a dog? Okay, do you ever cuddle with your cat or dog? Yeah? Do you cuddle with your lizard? It's not quite the same. Lizards don't have that part of the brain. They don't care. They don't care if they're getting cuddled. But a cat or a dog, that's a bonding thing. You actually produce a hormone we're going to talk about in a second that helps you feel connected. Those 2 parts of the brain, they're primitive, they're very honest, and that's the root of body language. That's where our body language comes from. The more evolved part of our brain, the cortex, is a little slower acting. And so if you know what to look for, oftentimes these nonverbal signs of discomfort or fear or anger will leak out in their body language before their cortex can say, whoa, that's not socially cool to show that. I better suppress it. I mean, we don't like showing our emotions as adults, right? Especially if we're angry or sad, we try to hide it. But this will leak out if you know what to look for. Okay, I'm going to skip through this for time. I want to make sure I give some time to some other people, and we'll just get straight to the tips. Okay, tip number 1 is actually a cluster of tips. This comes from a former FBI guy named Jack Schaefer, and he was giving some interesting assignments. The beginning of his book actually starts with him going into an interrogation room where they have a spy shackled to the table, and he was asked to try to get information out of him. And rather than torture or waterboarding or whatever, he decides to become friends with this guy. He says, if I can become friends with him, build his trust, break down all those defensive barriers he has, then he'll give me the information that I want. And so he outlined a formula for friendship and trust. And he's got a whole book about it called The Like Switch. But one portion that I want to focus on now is something that he suggests we do when we first meet somebody. First impression is such a powerful thing. What do we want to do when we first meet someone? When we first meet someone, we're going to get put into one of a couple different categories. They're going to see us as a friend, a foe, a potential partner, a mate, or completely irrelevant. Which category do you want to be in? Hopefully not foe. Or that other one. So he suggests this cluster of cues that send friend signals, that communicates to their primitive brain that, hey, I'm a friend. I'm somebody that you can trust. And the very first part of this cluster starts with a quick eyebrow flash. Like that. Okay? It's kind of a nonverbal, what's up? My oldest boy, he's 11. When he was 10, he came up to me and he said, so this girl was smiling at me and going, Dad, is that a body language thing? I was like, yes, son, that's a body language thing. Okay, just a quick nonverbal what's up. And if you accompany that with the second part of the cluster, a slight head tilt. Okay, a head tilt is a nonverbal way of showing that we're listening, that we care what they're saying. It also is exposing a vulnerable part of our neck. And so by doing that, we're showing that we trust them, which will help them see us as more of a friend. Our dogs and cats, have you seen them do that as well? They'll also tilt their head to show that they trust you. So eyebrow flash, slight head tilt, not too far or it gets awkward. Okay, but just a slight head tilt. And here's an example of a head tilt. This was at a conference in Texas that I went to. At the end of her presentation, she opened it up for questions with the head tilt to show, yes, I'm really listening. The third part of the cluster is to smile, but not just any smile. There's such a thing as a fake smile and a real smile. Anybody know how you can tell the difference? The eyes. So is this a real one or a fake one? This is like what we do for our family photos, right? I'm so happy I'm here. Or if you have a frenemy, you'll probably see this kind of smile. Oh yeah, that's so great. I'm celebrating your successes. Okay. Not a real smile. What about this one? Yeah, I just feel happy looking at him. And I like his haircut. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. I just need the beard is the only thing I need. University of Finland found that if we see a picture of a real, genuine smile, and as we said, you can tell by the crinkles around the eyes, then we get a mood boost. We start to feel a little bit better. We do not get a similar mood boost with a fake one. Our brains can tell the difference. So if you do, yes?
So what is it with the eyes? Is it just that they're squinting, or is there some other...
The muscles will actually get engaged around the eyes if it's a real smile from the emotion centers of the brain. So as much as possible, if you can make it a genuine smile where you're really feeling it, then that's ideal. If you're not feeling it, try to smile high at least to get these little crinkles. When I was younger, I used to say, I want to have wrinkles around my eyes, like permanent ones when I'm old, because it meant I led a happy life. So I'm working on my eye crinkles. Okay. So that cluster, eyebrow flash, head tilt, big genuine smile, and you're telling them, I'm a friend, trust me. Okay? So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, let me ask you another question. When we first meet somebody, what part of the body do we notice first? And maybe a different way to ask it, that primitive part of our brain that's scanning the environment for danger, what part does it notice first? Hands, very good. People tend to think it's the eyes or the nose or the shoes or something like that, but it's the hands. And this goes way back to our caveman days. If we saw some stranger coming up to us, we would look at their hands to see if he had a weapon. This is actually why culturally we started shaking hands. It was a way of showing, I don't have a weapon. You can trust me, I'm a friend. So hands are trust indicators. This is so powerful that jurors will find somebody on the stand more sneaky and less trustworthy if they can't see their hands. So I'll have to remember that next time I'm in court. Here's an example from one of my fellow body language trainers. He tried to keep the nonverbal cues the same between both picture, but in one he's showing his hands. Gut feel, who looks more trustworthy? Just by keeping his hands visible. So what are some common ways we like to hide our hands? Pockets. I've been doing that. I do this a lot in the winter. I've been violating my own rule. Or folding our arms. If you're at a table, having your hands underneath the table. So it's an easy fix. Keep your hands visible, and that's going to start building trust with one another. Another more specific thing, I wonder if we got time for this. I'd like to show this video, okay? Let's play this one. This will give you one specific thing you can try with your hands when you leave here, because usually the follow-up question to this is, well, what do I do with my hands then? It feels awkward to just stand here. And if you've seen Talladega Nights in his first TV interview,
I'm going to say the same thing 3 times. I'm going to change only what I do with the palms of my hands. Now, I keep my body fairly still, so I don't use any other body signals to infiltrate this. And I'll keep my voice as close to the same as I can. I say as close as I can because we know that when you change your body language, it's hardwired in your brain to change the way you sound. So I'll try to keep it as close as I can sound-wise. And I'll use exactly the same words, same instruction 3 times. Now, your task is to decide, do you accept what I'm saying? Do you want to do it, or do you reject me? Do you want to fight me, or do you want to go along with it? You want to say yes or no. That's all you've got to do. Okay, we're clear on this? Here we go. First instruction. Now, don't do this, just imagine this is what we're going to do. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask the people who are sitting in these seats here, I'll invite you to come and sit on this side of the room, please, and I'll invite the people here to take their seats. Now, those in the back of the room can come forward to the front, and those of you in the front can sit anywhere you choose. Now, raise your hand if you feel okay about what I'm asking. Who feels okay? Raise your hand. Okay, so just about all of you are prepared to do what I want. You don't even know what it is, but you're prepared to get up and do what I want because you feel like I won't threaten you, I won't intimidate you, Ellen won't make me look silly. This could be a bit of fun. That's what your mind's thinking because I use a signal that appealed to your ancient brain. Let's try the second instruction. Same words, same voice, changing only the palm. Here we go. Now I'm going to ask the people sitting on this side of the room here, I'll invite you to come and take these seats, and the people there, if you can sit over here please. Those at the back, come forward please, and sit here, and those in the front can sit anywhere they like. Give me a word that goes with this. What are you feeling? A word. Okay, who feels like you're getting an order? Raise your hand if you've got an order. Okay, think about this. So are you telling me that all I have to do is change my palms from an upward position where you wanted to do anything I wanted without question? Now I've turned it over. Now you're saying to yourself, hang on a minute, this guy's giving me an order. Well, maybe I don't want to do that. I'm an independent. I'll just check it all out. Make me laugh, funny guy. So now, how many of you are resisting? Let's try the third approach. Now, I'm going to ask the people sitting in these seats here, if you can come and sit over this side of the room, please, and those in those seats can sit here. In the back of the room, if you can come forward, please, sit here. And those in the front can go anywhere you like. Now, give me a word that goes with this, a word. I guess that was a word. What are you feeling with this? Well, this is more than an order. This is a directive. You have no choice, and you're an idiot. So we tested this in a very simple way.
So can you feel the difference? I mean, it's just a video, but can you feel it? How different it feels? Do you have a dominant way that you tend to gesture? And does it change depending on who you're talking to? If you see them as a boss or someone that's subservient? And does it change based on how you feel? I notice it with my boys when they start to make me angry. Then I'll tend to do more palms down and finger when I start losing control myself. But because I'm still a data guy at heart, I don't want to go completely off feelings. So let's put a little data behind it. When they've done this experiment with groups of people, open palms gets about 84% compliance. Most people will go along with what they're asked to do. As soon as the palm comes down, then compliance drops to half. And when the finger comes out, then most people aren't going to do what you're asking. Lots of power from just a simple change with your hand gestures. So have you ever noticed politicians doing that? Especially on the federal level where they're probably getting coached. This is a common gesture you'll see because they're trying to communicate openness and trust. let's talk after about, because we could probably spend an hour just on hand gestures, especially if you talk about Trump's gestures. There's some fun things there, so maybe we'll talk after there. But this is a common one. Another one I see a lot is the soft finger pointy down thing. This deserves a name, I think, because they all do it. Open palm, finger pointy down thing. Or something like this, or a soft fist. Same types of gestures because they know how important this is. At least when they're in control of their emotions. When they start getting upset with each other in a debate, then that's when the palms come down and you start seeing some fun body language. Open palm, finger point. Okay, I'm going to try to get through the rest of this in 8 minutes. Another element to hands is the handshake. Handshake is great because there's so much information that can be conveyed. It's worth 3 hours of FaceTime. So what makes a good handshake? Well, you want to have a firm handshake, but not too firm. When I was a teenager, I used to do a lot of rock climbing, and I fancied myself as having a pretty strong grip. And then this 60-year-old professional racquetball player would come and just crush the life out of my hand. And that wasn't building influence, it was just obnoxious. So firm, so you're showing confidence, but not too firm to where it's aggressive. The other thing with the handshake is to keep it vertical. What does this convey if you turn your hand over the top of theirs? Dominance. So unless that's what you're trying to communicate, then keep it vertical so you're on the same playing field. That term, got the upper hand, that's actually where this came from. You have the upper hand, you have more leverage, and that's why it's a dominant handshake. Another cool thing happens with handshakes. This is Vince, and he went out on the street meeting people, introducing himself to them. And afterwards, they asked the people he met, what did you think of Vince on a scale of 1 to 10? And he got very average scores, 5s and 6s. Then he went out again and kept the clothes the same, kept all the body language the same, but he incorporated just a small amount of touch, just a light touch on the forearm when he shook their hand. And all of a sudden his ratings went up to 8s and 9s. And that's because there's a hormone that our bodies produce when there's welcomed, non-creepy human touch called, I have to put emphasis on that part, called oxytocin. Not OxyContin either. We don't want to get confused with that one either. Oxytocin is a bonding hormone. It's what makes us trust each other and connect with each other. That's why you want to cuddle your cats or your dogs. It's the same kind of hormone. It's the feels. Makes you feel good. And we get it when there's welcomed human touch. We get it when there's eye contact, things like that. So Dan Clark, when I was out there in the hall, he came by and gave me just a pat on the shoulder. And I said, thank you, Dan, for the oxytocin. But he hadn't been here, so he didn't know what that meant. Okay, so incorporating some welcome touch, they'll like you more, but don't overdo it. If you overdo it and move too quick, then it's counterproductive and you're just creepy John Travolta. Okay, so that's tip number 2, keep your hands visible. Play around with that hand gesture thing and see what it feels like, and then nail the handshake. The last tip I'm going to share with you, what do you notice in this picture with the cast of Big Bang Theory? They all look pretty much the same, don't they? And they got a head tilt and a smile, by the way, for good measure. They're all in sync. When we like someone, when we're close to them, we tend to do this. We tend to become in sync with our posture and our expressions and our hand gestures. This is called mirroring. It's a way that we can show and gauge interest. So that same FBI guy I mentioned, Jack Schaefer, he would deliberately try to use this to build rapport with someone. He would mirror their body language, and then partway through the conversation, he'd switch it up and see if they'd mirror it back. And if they did, then he knew he'd established sufficient enough rapport. If not, then he'd go back to mirroring them along with other friend cues in order to try to build the connection. The caveat to this, though, is don't mirror negative body language. If they're sitting here like this, okay, you don't want to be on the same sync for that. And don't overdo it. Find a balance where you're not parroting them and mimicking them too much. Just subtle mirroring, and that's going to make them feel similar to you and like you're on the same page as them. This was another Brain Games video where they had 2 digital avatars interacting with people. The short version of this is on the back end, we had this guy, whatever expression he made and whatever gesture he made with his head, the avatar would make it. And he was watching participants interacting with these avatars on the screen. One of these characters, he would just mirror whatever they did. If they nodded their head, he'd nod his head. If they laughed or smiled, he'd laugh or smile. So I give you one guess who the people liked the most, the one that he was mirroring their body language. So watch for that to see how people are in sync. I put this in here for Ryan Roach if he's in here. I don't think he's in here, but use it to show that you're on the same page as someone, and you can use that as a gauge. So to wrap it up, tip number 1 is the cluster of friend cues: eyebrow, flash, head tilt, genuine smile. And then show your hand, nail the handshake, and then mirroring. And Vince Vaughn approves of this message, in case anyone was worried. If you have any questions, I'm going to hang around in the back before I take off today, and feel free to reach out to me on your social media of choice. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Jeff, I guess, what's the best way to link up with you? Is it by email? Is there somewhere they can go? I mean, this is cool stuff. Where can they go to learn more about it? Instagram?